Hey now folks, today we are taking a look at the newest expansion for Sentinels of the Multiverse, and that is Sentinels of the Multiverse Vengeance. Now, up until this point, the other expansions that had come out for Sentinels, even though they added some new and unique elements, they didn't really change the way that the game was played. You had two smaller expansions, Infernal Relics and Rook City, which recently were actually put together into a reprint in a big box. And then there was also a bunch of smaller expansions that just added individual heroes, villains, and environments. But with Vengeance, first off, altogether it's actually quite a big expansion. You have 5 new heroes, 2 new environments, and 5 villains, but not actually 5 individual villains. Well, they kind of are. Basically, it introduces a new game mode where instead of facing off against one of the 5 villains in this that is introduced in the expansion, you have to fight all of them all together, or depending on the number of players. So it's 2 to 5 players. If you play with 3 players, you're going to play with 3 of the 5 of these villains. If you have all 5 players, then you're playing with all 5 of the villains on this team. And it's the Vengeful 5 is the name of the team. It's Baron Blade, who was one of the original villains from the base set, the weakest villain, arguably, from the base set, now supersized, more powerful, together with a group of villains that he brought together, and you have to take them all on. And it changes fundamentally the way the game is played, because now you put one villain between each of the heroes that's playing, and you have to take the turns in that order. So it goes villain turn, hero turn, villain turn, hero turn, and so on, and then the environment. So I'm not going to tell you too much about it now. Let's go ahead and go over the overview. We'll go over each individual component, because the new heroes that are introduced, some of them have some sort of crazy new mechanics as well, including the Sentinels, which actually has one player taking control of a team of heroes. It's a lot to take in. Let's go over it. We'll come back, and then I'll tell you what I think. Let's start with the easy stuff first. There are 2 new environments in this game, and that is Freedom Tower and the mobile defense platform, which is like Baron Blade's new home turf or something like that. And Freedom Tower is what the Freedom 5, the 5 titular heroes of the game, use. So let's go over some of the new cards that come in these environment decks. And these work the same way as the previous environment cards. When it's the environment turn, you just flip over the top card and do whatever it says. So for the mobile defense platform, you have the propulsion systems. Now, everything about this game is all about structures. So these structures come out and they stay out and they have hit points and they can have an effect on the game. Propulsion systems are very interesting in that if this card is ever reduced to 0 hit points, it's game over for everyone. But fortunately, you have other things to protect it, like the shield generators that reduce damage to the other environment cards by 1. The battalion mechanic can make the other structures regain a hit point. Then you just have the defensive cards like the Battalion Gunner, which is going to deal hero targets and energy damage, every hero target and energy damage, or the Battalion Brute, which deals the highest hit point, deals the hero target with the highest hit points, a melee, and a lightning damage. So this deck is definitely made to sort of mess over the heroes more than anything else. Contrast that with the Freedom Tower environment, which is more along the lines of helping the heroes, although not every card does. So Dr. Stinson's Secondary Lab, at the end of the environment turn, reveal the top card of each hero deck, and you can either discard it or replace it. Legacy's Landing Pad, damage dealt by the target with the highest hit point by 1, increased damage by the highest hit point target by 1, or reduced damage dealt to the target with the lowest hit points by 1. I would say that helps the heroes more than it does the villains on average. Caspit's Playground is kind of a weird card. All hero ongoing cards are also equipment cards. That could be good or bad. The Wraith's Arsenal, at the start of the environment turn, each player may draw a card. If all players draw a card, you destroy this card, but even so, that's very, very good. The Training Simulator helps the villains in that it lets the villains take another villain card from their trash at the start of the environment turn. Entry Point goes over another room card, replacing its text and essentially increasing all damage dealt by villains by 1. And the Medical Ward, at the start of the environment turn, each target regains a hit point. So that's just a taste of both of the new environment decks. Now the game also comes with 5 brand new heroes. A couple of them are very straightforward, and we'll go over them first. So one of them is Knife. Now her power is the Energy Lance. Knife deals 1 target 2 energy damage. She's kind of like a cyborg assassin. 30 hit points. There's her incapacitated side. when she's reduced down to 0. And here's just some of the cards that she has. Now, I would say that her cards have the flavor of sort of using equipment primarily and sacrificing hit points and sacrificing equipment to deal more damage, but also dealing more damage to people with more hit points and finishing off foes as well. So here's the Overcharged Null Shield. She can reduce damage dealt to her, and if she chooses to destroy it, she can draw some cards. The Prototype Servo Gauntlet increases her damage, but she can choose to destroy. If she takes out a target, she can destroy an ongoing card. The Primed Punch. Now, most of the time, at the start of her turn, she can deal a target. If she uses it as a power, she can deal one target of melee damage and energy damage. At the start of her turn, she can deal 4 damage, but she'll have to destroy this card. The Kinetic Neutralizer. It's ongoing. All damage dealt by knife to the villain target with the highest hit points is increased by 1. Incidental Contact hurts everybody by 1 damage, but she can selectively choose additional targets to take 1 damage, an extra 1 damage. Focusing Conduit Blade, all of her energy damage is increased by 1, and she can choose to destroy the card to deal 1 target 3 damage. And when she does destroy it, she can play another equipment card. Whenever damage dealt by knife reduces a target to 1 hit point, destroy that target. And Energy Burn, when one target, you can deal a target 3 energy damage. If that target has 10 or more hit points, deal another 2 energy damage. So she's pretty straightforward, just a lot of damage dealing and some little sacrifice there. Now, Parse is all about finding weak points, and what that means in game terms is she can help the other players get past irreducible damage that the villains might have. So she's sort of an archer that can detect weak spots. There's her incapacitated side. Her power, is to deal 1 target, 1 projectile damage. It's very simple. She shoots an arrow. Some of her cards. Segmentation Fault, ongoing. She can discard a card by using a power. If she does, she can destroy an ongoing environment card. Targeting Arrow. 1 target takes 1 irreducible projectile damage. Increased damage dealt to that target by 1. So she shoots someone with her arrow, and the other heroes can find a weak point. Impossible Shot. 1 target takes 3 irreducible projectile damage, and she gets to draw a card. Between the lines, 1 hero can use a power now. If that power deals damage, it's irreducible. Buffer Overflow. It's ongoing. When a villain card would enter play, you can discard it instead and destroy this card. When this card is destroyed, draw a card and play this hot card of the villain deck. So it's kind of like insurance against a really nasty card that might come out. Extrasensory Awareness, ongoing. Power card. Look at the top 3 cards of the villain deck. Discard 1 of them. Put the other 2 on top of the deck in any order. Then shuffle the villain deck. So sort of investigative, like kind of the Wraith and the Visionary do. And Reveal the Flaws, ongoing. Damage dealt by hero targets is irreducible. At the start of your turn, destroy this card. So lots and lots of stuff to help you get past irreducible damage and take care of some of the villain's nastier stuff. Now, they start to get a little more complicated with the Naturalist. His base power is to search your deck or trash for a form and put it into play. Now, form cards are basically beast modes. Oh, there's his incapacitated if you want to see that. Are basically 3 different beast modes that he can transform into, each with special abilities. So the Nimble Gazelle, when it enters play, destroy other form cards. The power is the Naturalist who gains 3 hit points, and you can activate abilities with the Gazelle icon. Formidable Rhinoceros, same thing, except that his natural ability is to reduce damage dealt to him by 1. His power is to draw 2 cards, and he can activate Rhino effects. Deadly Crocodile, increased damage dealt by the Naturalist by 1. Power, the Naturalist deals 1 target to melee damage. So depending on what form he's in, he has a versatile array of effects. And some of the cards, no matter when you play them, you'll have a basic power or ability. But if you're in a particular form, like in this case, the Crocodile, you'll get an additional ability. So Cornered Beast says a power, destroy a target with 1 or 3 or fewer hit points. And then if you're in Crocodile form, if there are more non-hero targets and hero targets, increase damage dealt by the Naturalist by 1. Indomitable Force, ongoing, reduce damage dealt to the Naturalist by 1. At the start of your turn, destroy this card. If you're in Rhino form, whenever damage will be dealt to a hero target, redirect it to the Naturalist. That can be very, very powerful. Hyperactive Senses, reveal the top 2 cards of any 2 decks, put them back on top of their decks in any order. If you're in Gazelle form, you may discard the top card of any 2 decks. Some of the cards you can choose depending on what form you're in. So Primal Charge, if you're in Gazelle form, draw 4 cards. If you're in Rhino form, the Naturalist deals 1 target 2 melee damage. If you're in Croc form, he deals 1 target 3 melee damage. In Natural Form's Power, it's a power you can use it's ongoing. If you're in Gazelle form, player draws 2 cards. Rhino form, regain 2 hit points. Crocoform, deal up to 2 targets, 1 toxic damage each. So very versatile. You always have the option of different things you can do depending on what form you're in, but at least you can always do something even if you're not in the right form you want to be in. The last 2 heroes I want to show you get a little crazier. Now, Setback, his power, add 1 token to your unlucky pool, play the top card of your deck. Now, there's the incapacitated form. What does the unlucky pool do? Basically, you can play cards to have bad things happen to you or your friends, and then keep taking these unlucky tokens, hoping to turn them in with some of the cards to do a lot of damage or to help out the team a lot. So here's some of the bad cards in order to gain unlucky cards, unlucky tokens. Reckless Push, attack deals 1 target 2 melee damage, Setback deals himself 2 melee damage, but you add 2 tokens to your unlucky pool. Friendly Fire, whenever a hero deals a non-hero target damage, that hero may also deal 2 damage to Setback, but then he gets 2 tokens to his unlucky pool. Bumbling Fool, discard the top card of each deck. You may add or remove number of hero tokens from your unlucky pool. Looking Up, add 3 tokens to your unlucky pool. Setback deals 1 target 3 melee damage. At the start of your turn, if you have 10 or more of those tokens, he deals himself 3 psychic damage. But now here's what you can start turning in to do something with those tokens. Plucky Break, remove 2 tokens from your unlucky pool. If you do, draw a card and Setback deals 1 target 2 melee damage. If there are 0 tokens in your unlucky pool, you actually get to regain 1 hit point. Cash Out, remove any number of tokens from your unlucky pool, draw that many cards. Each player may discard 1 card. If number of hero -1 cards are discarded this way, each hero target regains 2 hit points. Karmic Retribution, if you have fewer than 7 tokens, remove 1 of them. If you do, Setback regains 2 hit points. If you have more tokens in your unlucky pool, remove 7 of them, and Setback deals 1 target 7 melee damage. That's really good. And Exceeded Expectations, 1-shot. Remove any number of tokens from your unlucky pool. Setback deals that many targets 3 melee damage each. So it's risk versus reward. How far do you want to push your luck with Setback? But the final hero really fundamentally changes the way that hero decks works, and that's the Sentinels. Now, the Sentinels are the only hero I've seen so far that comes with a setup card, and basically what's going to happen is it will tell you to put all 4 of these hero cards into play as your hero. You have Writhe, and you have, with 14 hit points, the Idealist, right there. You've got Dr. Medico, and you've got Mainstay, and they all have their own individual powers, but on their incapacitated side, they don't have any special power for when they're incapacitated. They're all basically the same. But if all of them go down, then you flip your setup card over to the incapacitated side, and then you get your incapacitated power there, and you actually have 1 more than most of the other heroes have, I believe. But basically how it works is they're all going to be in play. You'll lay each of them out on the table in front of you as the player, and then whenever you take damage, you have to choose, that would apply to you, you have to choose one of your heroes to take all of that damage. So that's really going to matter in the beginning of the game because they're always going to be targeted by effects that target the hero with the lowest hit points. But if it also really hurts if it is a power that affects all hero targets, because each of them counts as a separate hero target, and they would all take that damage. But nevertheless, it can be very powerful because in your deck of cards, you have some very powerful abilities that are dependent on which heroes are still active and not incapacitated. So for instance, Positive Energy. It will always have each hero target regain 1 hit point, and that's everybody, not just your heroes. But if the Idealist is still active, she deals each villain target 2 damage. Restorative Burst. If Dr. Medico is active, you may flip one of your incapacitated heroes and restore it to 3 hit points. Each hero target regains a hit point. Blackout. One of your heroes deals 1 target 2 melee damage, and if Writhe deals damage this way, the damage target then deals each non-hero target 2 infernal damage. So you see that these cards get better with people on your team that are active. Good hero, bad hero. Your hero target with the lowest hit points regains 3 hit points. If Mainstay is active, he may deal 1 target 3 melee damage. Horrifying Dichotomy. If Dr. Medico is active, these are some of the cards that are actually rely on 2 heroes being active. So if Dr. Medico is active, he deals 1 target 3 energy damage. If Writhe is active, he deals 1 target 3 infernal damage. Dark Delusions. If Writhe is active, he deals each villain target 2 infernal damage. If the Idealist is active, she deals 1 target 3 damage. Second chance, flip one of your character cards from its incapacitated side to its active side to restore it to 6 hit points. So you see it's possible to get your heroes back actually fairly easily if you've got the right cards. And the final one I want to show you is Coordinated Assault. One of your hero targets deals one target X melee damage, where X equals the number of your active hero character cards plus 1. So again, all of these cards encourage you to have all of your different Sentinels active as much as possible in order to get the most benefit from them. Now, let's talk about the Vengeful 5. This is the new way to play the game. Normally with an expansion for Sentinels, you'll have an individual villain or a few individual villains that you fight on their own. In this game, you have 5 somewhat weaker villains that you have to face all at once. Well, not necessarily all at once, it depends on the number of players. So if you have 2 players in the game, you pick 2 of these 5 villains. If you have up to 5, you'll take 5 villains. And the way it works is it actually fundamentally changes the turn structure. You're going to place one villain, usually Baron Blade, that's what the rulebook suggests, as the first villain, and he'll go first, just as any normal villain turn would go. Then whoever you choose as the first hero is going to go, then the next villain that you choose, then another hero, then a villain, then a hero, and so on until you've gone through every villain and then every hero. Then you take the environment turn as normal, then it goes back to the first villain, usually Baron Blade. And it always works the same, so you'll do start of turn effects, you'll draw the top card out the villain deck and resolve it. Any other cards that might be out, you'll resolve those, end of turn effects, and then it moves on. So let's go over some of these. Now, they all have oversized cards. And one important difference right off the bat is that they don't really have a flip side like the normal villains. Instead, it's actually like the hero flip side, an incapacitated side, where if they're incapacitated and dropped out of the game, all of their cards go away just like the heroes, but they still do this one action. So Baron Blades is, at the start of Baron Blades' villain turn, each hero target deals itself 1 toxic damage. I don't really know what that means thematically. Fright Trains is the same way. I guess their toxic bodies or their powers linger on in the base. I don't really know. But anyways, they all have their same abilities, much like the normal villain. So at setup, you'll do the setup stuff like draw a card, special card for Baron Blade, and equip him with it, and he'll deal damage every turn and so on. And then you've got, and Baron Blade in this one, thematically, he's increased himself with genetic engineering and like cyber technology to be stronger. And now he's leading the Vengeful 5 along with a bunch of other minions. Proletariat is like this Soviet dude who can clone himself and gets stronger with the more clones that are out there. Airmine is like a Catwoman type who just messes with the party really badly and redirects stuff and steals cards or destroys cards. Friction is basically like a version of Tachyon, the evil version of Tachyon, but she has to deal herself and potentially the other villains damage in order to get more and better and worse effects. And Fright Train is just like the Juggernaut, just like this really bad dude who looks really weird on the card, but you have to picture that his head is behind this like helmet that looks like a train. That's why he looks so strange. See, he's just like a normal dude, and that's actually the cover of an X-Men comic, by the way. I think the one where the Juggernaut's taken out. Anyways, he's just like a really strong guy that deals a lot of damage and can take a lot of damage in return. Now, I don't want to go over all the cards in every single villain deck, but I do want to show you that in each villain deck, they have these new things called the Nemesis, or Nemesis. They're each called Nemesis, who is basically like another type of minion that the villains can come out. You play them from the villain deck as normal, but each of them either has a normal ability that they do or a special ability that they use if a certain hero is in play. So Empyreon has 11 hit points at the end of Baron Blade's turn. This is from Baron Blade's deck. This card deals itself and each non-villain target 1 energy damage. If Captain Cosmic, who is a hero that's yet to be released actually, is active in this game, reduce energy damage dealt to this card by 1. That's basically it. New heroes, new environments, a new way to play the game and fight the villains. That's Sentinels of the Multiverse Vengeance. Just like with my overview, let's start with the simpler stuff and work our way up. The environments. I've never really defined my opinion of Sentinels by the environments. I think those are a neat little variety to the game. They add, it's cool to have them. But when I think of Sentinels, I think heroes and villains. That's what I focus on. But nevertheless, the 2 environments that come with Vengeance are pretty cool. You have Freedom Tower, which I've always broken the environments down by ones that really screw over the players and ones that just sort of don't. And I think that Freedom Tower is one of those, because it's Freedom Tower, which is like the superheroes' headquarters. It does favor the heroes more, although there is some bad stuff in there. But you have cards like the medical facility that heals all targets by 1. That, in my opinion, favors the heroes because it's harder for the heroes to heal than the villains to heal. Letting the villains get 1 hit point, whatever, it could be a difference between life and death if all the heroes can gain 1 every round for as long as that card stays out. There's also another one that lets you look at the top card of the deck, of each hero's deck, and either discard it or replace it, and that's a cool way to filter cards from your deck. So so that's a neat one for the heroes to use. The mobile defense platform is definitely more of a screw over the heroes type of environment, although not too badly. But it does have a cool thing, sort of like the Wagner Mars base had the self-destruct sequence. The mobile defense platform has this propulsion system, which if it dies, if it has hit points, if it gets destroyed, the game is over. Everyone dies. So it's a cool little sort of countdown thing where if there's a bunch of global damage going out, just hitting the environment cards, that's something to worry about. You may actually have to protect that thing. So I did enjoy that bit. But again, the environments are not a game changer for this. The heroes, some of them are easier and more straightforward than others. I would say that Knife and Parse are pretty straightforward in this set. I really like Knife's abilities that let her either deal more damage to a target that has a lot of hit points, or can finish off a target that has very few hit points left. That makes her feel like a cool cyborg assassin with a very silly name, Knyfe. I also liked Parse's abilities to get past irreducible damage, which makes more of a difference than you think. Almost all villains have some way to reduce damage, and that is very, very irritating. It changes the entire dynamic of your plan and how you're trying to take out the villain, so that's a useful thing to have. The Naturalist is one of those versatile characters that I like a lot because depending on the form that you have these different abilities on the cards, and now they have this new icon system particular to this hero, which can either put you in more of an offensive mode, more of a defensive mode, helping the other players out in healing them, things like that. I like that. I like heroes that are much more versatile, so that was a good choice for this set. Now, the other 2 heroes that you have access to in this expansion change the game a lot. They're not too difficult to use, but there's some fundamental differences to how you would play them as opposed to other heroes. First, Setback. Now, I played a couple of games with Vengeance, and the people that ended up playing a Setback at first were not happy at all playing with him because all of his cards, most of his cards, do bad things to himself. He deals damage to himself, or he makes other players get rid of equipment and ongoing cards, and it can be a nasty thing. But by doing so, you're getting these unlucky tokens, and you're giving yourself the chance. It's gambling. You're giving yourself the chance that later on you're going to get a card that uses those lucky tokens to deal a lot of damage or get some really powerful effects. So it's one of those push your luck type cards. I mean, that's the character, and that's why I think, much like with a lot of other heroes in the game, it's very thematic and very cool. But by far, my most interesting, probably my most favorite hero from this set, hero, singular, is the Sentinels. The fact that it's a team of heroes, that's pretty cool in and of itself. It doesn't make a lot of thematic sense because why would some of the other heroes, the base heroes you can play as in the game, have 25 to 30 some hit points, but these guys are all real weaklings. Like, I guess they're just rookie and training heroes, but the way it actually works out is cool because first you have this variety of powers you can use. You're still limited by the rules. You can still only use 1 power, but you have this variety of powers to choose from so long as they're still active. Also, the way that the cards in their deck work, if a certain hero is still active and you choose to attack with them, you'll get this special ability above and beyond what the card normally does for you. Some cards, like there's one that lets you deal a total of 6 points of damage, 3 from Dr. Medico, 3 from Writhe, but only if they're active. That's a cool thing too. So it encourages you to try to keep each of your heroes alive as much as possible to keep your deck versatile. And that's probably the drawback of the deck as well, because when you take damage, that damage you can't spread out that damage. We played that the wrong way the first time that we played because you have to spread the damage out amongst your heroes if they're taking it. You're still one entity, but you're spreading the damage out on your heroes. And that makes the global destruction effects, the ones that affect all hero targets, much more devastating for the Sentinel. So there is a significant drawback to the versatility that they have, but still, I think the jury's still out. I need to play with them more, especially with other heroes from other expansions, to see how powerful they really are or how powerful they aren't. But even if they end up being underpowered compared to other heroes, I still like them. I like that they're in the game. It's a really neat thing. And it shows that Greater Than Games, who make Sentinels, still has a few tricks up their sleeve as far as the heroes go. No. Now, that's all well and good. Heroes, environments, I mean, even if they add new things to the games, other expansions did that too. The centerpiece of Vengeance is the villain team, the Vengeful 5, in this new game mode. And I have a lot to say about this. So, first off, again, I appreciate the fact that this is a new way to play the game. I have never gotten bored with Sentinels, but still, after having a couple of big expansions, a lot of small expansions, you kind of get used to the sameness of the game, and I was kind of thinking, okay, well, this is what Sentinels is going to be. It's not ever going to change that drastically. And then Vengeance comes out, and it does change it drastically by completely changing the turn order and what you need to do to win, and how difficult the game can be, and I really appreciate that. But in my opinion, I don't think that this works that well. I think it was a noble experiment that falls flat for me for a couple of reasons. First off is game length. I think that's always been sort of a hidden risk of Sentinels. I don't see a lot of other people talk about it, but for me, compared to other lightish, I mean, I would consider Sentinels to be sort of a light game on the spectrum of cooperative games. I mean, if you're talking, it's somewhere in the middle maybe between, if you're talking about like Forbidden Desert, that kind of light cooperative game, up to like Robinson Crusoe or Eldritch Horror as far as fiddliness and moving things around and difficulty to learn. Sentinels is in the middle, not too light, not too complicated. So it's an easy game to sort of figure out, understand, and learn and play, but it's always been long because of, the fiddliness of it, of having heroes and villains constantly healing, constantly dealing damage, having damage taken back. Some games, depending on how it goes, can drag on very long, and the Vengeful 5 team integrated into this game, that game mode, really drags the game out a bit too long. Both of the games I played were pushing past 2 hours towards the 3-hour mark. Granted, I had a couple of new people in each game, and I have to teach them, so that slowed it down a bit, but still, I mean, it also upgraded the fiddliness quite a lot, because it's one thing, villain turns are always complicated. Okay, start of turn effects. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, play a villain card. Okay, play another villain card. Oh, okay. Then, then the end of turn effects and figuring out the order in which to do things was already complicated enough. Now you have to do that times 5. It's not that every single villain is as powerful or has as much stuff as a normal villain from Sentinels, but they all have to do the same things. Play a card, take care of the effects of cards already in play, take care of their base effects. And now you have to do that constantly. And instead of doing it all at once, you're doing it interstitially between each hero, which adds just more things to keep track of. Reminding people whose turn it is, reminding people, did we do this villain? Oh, we forgot to do that villain. Oh, I forgot to do the effects of that villain. That sort of stuff happens much more frequently with the Vengeful 5 mode. So that's a problem. The difficulty is also a problem. I love my co-ops to be very hard. To quote my friend Kevin, I like it when co-ops have you sort of dancing on that razor's edge. If it's too easy, it's just not that fun. But if it's cripplingly difficult, that's a problem too. And I've only played this twice, with this expansion, but man, it is so hard. And the fact is, that coupled with the length, because you don't die a fast death with the Vengeful 5. It's a long, drawn-out one. We were able to take out 2 or 3, depending on the game, of the villains, but like in the first game, we easily took out Fright Train and Friction, but then Baron Blade was untouched. He was sitting back there laughing as the nemesis that he brought out and the devices that he brought out were constantly dealing damage to us. And by the time we took out 2 of the villains, and Proletariat and Ermine were still there, and Baron Blade was still there untouched, we were all at death's door. And we played it out, but it was going to be death. And that's even in our second game, we did a little bit better, but it's just very, very, very difficult. I had to play both games with the maximum amount of players. I don't know how it scales going down. It could be easier. It certainly would be faster with less to worry about. But nevertheless, I don't know that. I think this is definitely up there in Iron Legacy territory as far as difficulty, which maybe that's too difficult. I don't know. I hate to say that because I do like my co-ops difficult, but it was just very overwhelming. Together with the link, I think that was not a good thing. And I don't know. I think that it just exacerbates the problems that Sentinel has without accentuating any of the really good things that Sentinels has. And I hate to say that because I do like that the game is played in a different way, but I don't know. I think there could have been a better way to do this. I actually think that the answer to the problem is right there in the expansion. Why not have the villain deck the villain team run the same way as the Sentinels, the new hero in the game. Not like the Aeneid. There's another villain named the Aeneid who's technically a team of villains, but plays much like a standard villain and much more fiddly and sort of random. But if you had the Vengeful 5 play out with one turn like the Sentinels do, where different cards that the villain deck plays have different effects depending on which of the 5 villains are still active, I think that would be pretty cool. I think it would add a unique, maybe it wouldn't be as drastic a departure as some people wanted, but I think it would still work very well and be very fun. But as it is, I'll probably I will definitely still try this mode again because I want to win. Now I definitely want to win, but I can imagine myself eventually just putting it aside, or maybe finding a variant that someone does online that makes it work better. Because as it is, it just makes the game too long and it's too fiddly. I mean, it's making the problems of Sentinels more outright and pronounced, rather than adding enough quality stuff to the game. Now, does that mean that you should bypass this expansion for now? I would say no. It's not too expensive, and you're getting some awesome heroes. I have no complaints about the heroes. I have no complaints about the environments, and I think that there's the potential with some retooling to make the villain stuff better. I think I just wish they had handled it in a different way, handled it in such a way that you could even fight each of the villains separately, like had a normal mode and then like a standard villain mode, something like that. I don't know, but hey, listen, Sentinels of the Multiverse is a great game. I won't really complain about any expansion they put out because I want more and more. But I hope that they sort of take some of the feedback that I've already seen from myself and from other people and sort of rework this into something better in a later expansion. Take this good idea and make it better, because it's a fantastic idea that just needs to be re-implemented, I think. But that's just my 2 cents. My name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.